What's up, everybody? Victor here, and it's time for another nation guide. This one is for the Livonian Order. With the release of Lions of the North, there are two branching paths for the Livonian Order. Either you remain a crusading order and you expand to the east, trying to end the Great Schism and convert the Orthodox territories to the east to Catholicism, or you go west, either fighting into or joining the HRE and focusing on colonialism. Which path you take is up to you, but this guide is going to be focusing exclusively on the path of going west. The guide for the east will come out eventually. The best place to start when it comes to setting up your country is with your military setup. You're simply going to take your army, move them north to Reval, and make your ruler a general. If he's no good, it's perfectly fine. Don't make him into the actual leader of the army. You will have an heir tomorrow, and you can see if he's better. Now you're going to take your two light ships, send them to protect trade in the Baltic Sea, and you're going to mothball everything else. You don't need a navy. Not anytime soon, anyway. So just let them sit there mothballed, and you'll eventually get around to them, because why pay for something, especially if you don't need it right now? With that being done, your military is set up. Now let's turn to your diplomacy and your starting rivals. You're going to rival Novgorod and the Teutonic Order at the start of the game. Do not rival Lithuania. You're going to try and get Poland to be your ally, and if they ally Lithuania and they're your rival, they're really not going to ally you. So just leave that blank. You are then going to, of course, improve relations with Poland. Now, if they've rivaled the Teutonic Order, go ahead and scornfully insult the Teutonic Order. There you go. That's your starting setup for your diplomacy. We'll turn to more of it once we've unpaused, but now let's talk about your estates and privileges. Now that that is done, it is time to actually talk about the estates and privileges. You see, the first thing you're aiming to do is revoke these privileges right here, because not only do you need to do it for a mission, but they're also really penalizing to you, such as negative 20% tax modifier, which is pretty much the only thing keeping your economy afloat right now, so you really want to get rid of these as soon as you can. Now, in order to do that, you have to have 15% more loyalty. You can get that by simply unpausing the game for a single day. Now, if you pick any of these that'll actually give you clergy loyalty enough to actually do it, you will lose nobility or burgher loyalty, which is obviously a problem because you want to seize land. So do that first, then you can pick either talented theologian or a local preacher. Now, obviously, local preacher seems like it would be the worst option, gaining 5 devotion or 10 devotion when you don't really need any, but you're losing prestige. The thing is, you're also going to come in here, click this button, and then that will make you lose devotion, so that can just sit over here for now, and then you can pick between having the 10 that you need and losing the 5 prestige, and making the nobility mad, or making the burghers mad. I've generally found that the nobility matter a little bit less, and you want to have the devotion as high as possible. Now that that is done, I am now able to revoke one of these, and I recommend picking Dorpat, because this is the one with the tax modifier, and the other ones, while they are kind of annoying, do not impact your economy as much. So, revoke that one to begin with. Now that that is done, we can now talk about this one once I've actually assigned some privileges. So give me a moment while I take care of that. Now that that is done, all we're going to do is use this event right here, and we're going to pick Reval. The reason why is the other ones up here have larger armies than we have at the moment, and Reval, where we're already heading, is a fort, which means they'll be spawning, but I'll at least still have the defensive on that fight. Now that I have an heir, I can roll him to see if he is any better as a general than my starting ruler. And, not really, but I'll still rather have somebody with more actual combat pips, because even though fire is not huge right now, it is still better off because, well, your infantry still do fire damage. So you might as well have a fire general, because it'll at least be better than nothing. Now that that is done, it's time to unpause and start improving relations with the other rivals of the Teutonic Order. In this case, it would be Brandenburg. They'll usually be an option for you, so go ahead and use that to your greatest extent that you can. And if they do rival the Danish, you can pick them up as well, but it's usually not going to be available to you. And that's about it. You're simply going to wait and sit back and try and get these guys as your ally. If you can, also try and pick up people like Wolgast if they don't rival the Brandenburgians, because that way they can use them as well as a buffer when you actually declare on people. Once these rebels are taken care of, drop your maintenance down to almost 0, so you're still getting a trickle of manpower coming in, so you have less to do later, and mothball all of your forts. You're not going to be fighting until a couple of years down the road. Once that's done, just sit back and wait. So I'll see you guys when I actually have the alliances and I'm ready to move forward. See you in a little bit. And welcome back to about a minute later. I forgot to mention that at this point, go ahead, take your army and hire up to your force limit of 12. I would recommend keeping your cavalry, though you can delete it if you really, really hate cavalry. But you are going to fight somebody in your first war that is going to outnumber you. And if you do not have cavalry, it is just that much easier for them to beat you. So I would recommend keeping it, but your call. With that being said, see you guys in a little bit. And welcome back, everybody. So it's about 4 years later, and during that time, I allied Wolgast, Brandenburg, Poland, and I dropped a claim down on Riga. Now, I wanted to talk a bit about Poland, because while you could just improve relations a little bit with Brandenburg and Wolgast, and it's fairly easy to get them as an ally, Poland is a little bit different. The reason why is usually they will flip friendly to you and then ally you after about 100 to 120 positive opinion. The thing is that's not guaranteed. Sometimes it takes a lot more. Specifically, you'll have to go up to a positive 100 and improve relations, and scornfully insult a new enemy, and then sometimes even come in here and grant the religious diplomats early, which I wouldn't recommend doing if you don't have to, just because it makes it more difficult to use normal loyalty to revoke these later on. So it's one of those, if you have to do all that to get Poland, definitely do so. It makes it so much easier. But now's the time to attack Riga. Now, Riga is one of those countries that can have a lot of people that will be a potential ally for them. This can range from people like Stettin and Wolgast to even Poland themselves. If Poland allies them, there's really nothing you can do about that, save for when you attack the Teutons with Polish, that's when you attack Riga, and you simply try and win both wars at the same time. But in this instance, that's not the case, so I'm going to go ahead and move in and attack them. And before you actually engage anybody, make sure you complete Expand the Army. It just requires you to be at 100% of your force limit, and you have both your heir and your starting ruler, or whatever your ruler is, as a general, and it'll make it so you have more army tradition, which is great, it's more morale, but also it'll drastically reduce your amount of shock damage you receive, meaning you'll be able to fight this even though you're outnumbered here. The good news is that they cannot come this direction. They will not get military access through Wolgast, Brandenburg, or Poland, meaning they can't make it to you in this direction. They'll have to go all the way around and move up through the north. And you have, because of these two forts, a safe zone that you can use to recruit more troops, namely more cavalry if you need them, as well as mercenaries so that you can actually fight them one-on-one. And you will probably have to fight them outnumbered. So if you do, again, as always, come into your advisors, see if you have a morale of armies guy or something along those lines to help boost you up a little bit more. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and unpause it and pause the recording, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. And welcome back, everybody. I brought you back while I'm still at war with the Riga and the Trade League because I wanted to talk about two things in particular. First, make certain you do set the military focus at the beginning of the game so that you get to tech level 4 as quickly as possible. The last thing you need is being outnumbered by the enemy and them having extra morale on you. So you definitely want to have tech level 4 first. The other thing I wanted to mention is that, as I said before, I'm allied to Wolgast and Brandenburg. The thing is that they usually will not come in to help you because I have one extra Diplo relation point because of my diet mission. If you don't have any Diplo relation, either from an advisor, from your rulers, or otherwise, they will not come in. It'll be 0 to 0. The very fact that I have this extra Diplo rep means they'll actually come in and help me in this war. Now, that's a very good thing because I don't want to just take Riga, I want to come and take Lubeck as well. So this will definitely help me expand faster, but first I do need to actually have that Diplo reputation point. So if you need to, come in here and see if you have one in your advisors. If you do, great, you'll be able to call them in. If not, then you're either going to have to fish for it or you'll have to come down here and take care of it yourself, which can be risky. But just wanted to point those things out. I'll see you guys in a little bit. And welcome back. War's now done. I did end up vassalizing Lubeck, so I'm going to have a vassal out in the HRE that'll help make me some money and pay off any of the loans I had to take in order to fight this war. Now, there is something I want to talk about, even though it didn't really happen in my game. So let me go ahead and explain how you're supposed to fight this. Because usually you're going to be outnumbered and they're going to come to you. If you have Wolgast, Brandenburg, and Poland as allies, they won't get military access to come in this direction. They'll have to go through Denmark and all the way back around here. The thing is that this fort is on a grasslands province. It's not actually a good place to fight, especially if you're outnumbered. However, your capital, Riga, and this other fort over here, they're all woodland provinces, which means they take a -1 dice roll. Which means if they come this direction and they're outnumbering you on Reval, let it fall. Let them take the attrition, let it fall, move on to the wood fort that you can then attack and have the massive advantage on. Don't fight them on a grassland province, and after you've done push them off, then come back up here and retake this fort. With that being said, I need to get this stuff cored, get this stuff stabilized, improve relations with my vassal, and get ready to take on the Teutonic Order. So I'll see you guys in just a little bit. And welcome back, everybody. So now it's time to take on the Teutonic Order. You need to take them on before 1460, because it's that year, at the very beginning, that the Prussian Confederation disaster can actually fire, where Danzig will rise up and take over half of the Teutonic Order without any issue. So you need to attack them now. Now, as you can see here, I am able to call in 2 of my allies, but one of them likes them too much. So be sure you have at least enough favors to come in here and reduce their opinion of the Teutonic Order, because that way they should be willing to come in and help you. And you really, really want Wolgast in this war. The reason why is because I am not using this mission. You are not subjugating them right now. You are simply going after Danzig. Now, if you can get Danzig, that is obviously going to be better. If you cannot, however, you want to give it to Wolgast. The reason why is because you want to have Danzig not be owned by the Teutonic Order, but also not be the free Danzig core, the tag, out and loose. So you actually have to do both. Now, obviously it's going to be easier for Wolgast to just stand on Danzig. So that is why it's not quite as big of an issue. And I'll explain all that in a little bit. But for now, I actually have to fight this. So I'll bring you guys back once this war is done. And welcome back, everybody. So this war is over. Basically, all I did was I had my troops move to Königsberg as soon as possible, split them into 2 7K stacks, walked 1 around, left 4 in Tuchel, 3 on Stolp, while the Polish sieged down Tuchel. The moment it fell, because I kept just clicking on Danzig, both armies on Stolp and Tuchel moved towards Danzig, so I would have, no matter what, troops heading there as quickly as I possibly could. I got there a day before Poland did, so I got the occupation. And that's all you're going for here. You're just going for the occupation. You don't have to worry about money. You don't have to worry about anything else. If you really want to, you can go for a humiliate for the splendor objectives, but it's absolutely not necessary. Before you peace out, though, make certain you finish this mission, so you will have the subjugation CB for 30 years, and now it's time to actually peace out. Now you are on the clock. You are going to core up Danzig as quickly as possible, because no matter what you do, once you take Danzig, Poland wants to destroy you. And they are going to break their alliance. And what you are going to try and do is simply join the HRE in time before they attack you. And it's not overly difficult to do so. You simply have to be prepared for this and make certain you're actually improving relations with Austria enough so that you can join before your truce, which is going to take about 5 years, expires. So I'm going to go ahead and just get this cored up, and I will bring you guys back once there's time to talk about something new. See you in a second. And welcome back, everybody. So just in time, because Poland just broke their alliance with me, I'm now in the HRE, which means I am safe, because while Poland wasn't going to be able to attack me due to the truce, Muscovy absolutely could. But now that I'm in the HRE, Austria will protect me, and on top of that, they actually even allied me. Normally, they're not going to ally you at this point. You usually need another vassal in the HRE. In this case, for whatever reason, Lübeck apparently is working for that. However, doesn't really matter. Now, my basic plan is simple after this point. I'm going to wait for the Teutonic Order's truce to expire, and then I'm going to use the CB I got out of this mission to vassalize them. You don't want to take the next mission down here until you've actually done so, because what this will do is it'll also make it so the Teutonic Order sees you as a historical friend, which will reduce their liberty to desire by 50%. And you really want that to happen. So just hold off on clicking this until you actually have the Teutonic Order as a vassal. In the meantime, though, it is now time to start looking at other targets for who to expand into and to integrate Lübeck, because that will allow me to get other people I can't quite reach at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording, get Lübeck integrated, drop some claims on people, and get ready to expand yet again. So I will see you guys in just a little bit. And here's the Steam CD key for this game. If you want a copy of this game, be the first person to activate a product on Steam and enter this code, and you'll get a full copy of it. All I ask that you do is please leave a comment on the video saying that you got the game. With that being done, let's go ahead and get back to the video. And welcome back, everybody. So I realized I did not talk about Danzig, and that is actually a fairly important subject to discuss, because it is very positive for you to be the one that takes Danzig. However, you are not required to take Danzig. You do have the other option, which is you give it to Wolgast. The reason why is because, yes, you can move your capital to Danzig and then join the HRE. The thing is that Wolgast, if they take Danzig, will also add the province, which will then allow you to join the HRE. But it also allows the Teutonic Order to survive. The Prussian Confederation event will not fire if Danzig is not owned by the Teutonic Order, and Danzig, the tag, is not independent. Because of this, handing it over to Wolgast, or taking it yourself, will prevent the Teutonic Order from being eliminated, meaning I now have the 30-year time frame to allow myself to subjugate the Teutons without having to play beat the clock. Equally important, though, is that because they have it and they have their own mission tree, the Teutons can actually join the HRE themselves, since they're not going to be wiped out by Danzig. Because of that, as long as they improve relations with Austria, which they're supposed to be better about now, and in this game they might not be willing to do it, but if they do, they can end up joining the Empire themselves, which means suddenly you are bordering the Empire, and you can just simply join without taking any other land. So if you can get Danzig, that's fine. It's perfectly acceptable, so long as you prevent the Prussian Confederation event, you're going to be fine. So that is the thing. And if you can't get Danzig yourself and you have to give it to Wolgast, and they don't add it to the HRE, and the the Teutons don't end up actually joining the Empire, the other option is just to do what you do before. Use the Splendor bonus, get a claim over here on Bornholm, or on Lund, or anywhere over here after you've integrated Lübeck. Drop the claim on there, declare, take that province, and move your capital there, and then join the HRE from the Danish lands. With all that being said, though, I'm going to pause the recording because I need to wait for a bit before I can talk about new things. See you in a little bit. And welcome back, everybody. So, as I said before, I'm now an ally of Austria, just in case they lose the emperorship, and, well, they lost the emperorship. Meaning, I'd have to rely on Hesse with all 6,000 troops to help protect me against Poland, who has a total of about 50,000, and Muscovy with 42. Hence why it's always a good idea to try and get them as an alliance as soon as you practically can. That being said, it is now time to go in and get the subjugation done on the Teutonic Order, and it looks like, oh, no, I'll not call in Wolgast now. That'll break the alliance with Mecklenburg, and then I can immediately just call them in, and now Mecklenburg is out of the war, so I don't ever have to deal with them at all. So I'm going to go ahead and fight this. I'll see you guys in just a second. And welcome back, everybody. So I just got done vassalizing the Teutonic Order, and with that I'm basically done over here, and it's time to just consolidate and use the HRE territory to build up a power base. The reason why is because once I am able to get the Teutonic Order under my belt, You can do Strengthen Our Authority, which will make sure they stay a little bit more loyal than normal, though they're still pretty bad. But at least you'll have that minus 50% in there for being historical friends. Now it's time to simply establish the state diet, which means basically get to Tech 8 for the courthouse building in your capital, hire an advisor of any level, and have 60 loyalty in each estate, which is fairly easy because you should be drifting fairly close, and you can always sell titles once, and that'll give you 10 free loyalty. So it's simply a waiting game to get this one done, and then you can move on to secularize the order. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the next subject, because at this point, you're just expanding in the HRE. So simply find targets that you can go after and pick them off one by one, because realistically, there's no one that should be able to beat you in the north here, because Wolgast, Brandenburg, Mecklenburg, none of them up here are that strong. And on top of that, you should have Austria willing to come in, especially if they're not the Emperor, to help you expand. And as long as you can keep expanding, you will outscale and outpace Poland, and eventually you can turn back around and take care of Muscovy as well. But I do want to talk about the secularization of the order, because this is actually something that's pretty strong. So I'll see you in just a second. And welcome back, everybody. So because the rest of this guide would fundamentally be pick easy targets in the HRE to build up a power base, to attack Poland, Lithuania, etc., that's not really necessary to be covered in the guide. What is something that's useful is to understand the mission tree that you get when you go the Livonian Order Monarchy path. Because while the left-hand side is just kind of basic colonial missions, these 5 missions are not basic at all, and in fact offer a ton of variety and complication. And understanding how it works will make your life so much easier. The first one up here, it's pretty simple. Yet again, you get 60 loyalty in all your estates, you have an advisor of each kind, and you get to tech level 8 and build a courthouse in your capital. And then you're able to do secularize the order. This event simply allows you to form Livonia at tech level 8 without the Reformation. And this is a very strong thing to do early on, because this is the idea set for Livonia side by side with Prussia. In terms of military quality, the difference is 5% infantry combat ability and 10% morale. You are still very dangerous, but in exchange for that you get 20% morale of navies and 10% goods produced. So your economy will generally be very strong. You'll be able to fight people like Britain, Norway, Castile with your navy as well as your army. So you will be just as lethal, if not more so, than Prussia. The thing is, it doesn't come naturally with the government reform, which turns us back to the mission tree. Because if you go down the mission tree further, right here, once you have almost 500 admin power, you are able to create a new government. And this has a lot of choices here. So give me a second again while I go through and set this up, because again, there's a lot of these. So give me 1 second. The easiest way to explain how this works, the creation of a new government, is that it creates an event chain. There are 6 events that are going to come up, each with 3 options that you have to pick. One option will give you an admin token, one will give you a diplo token, and one will give you a military token. At the end of the 6 events, there are 15 different government types that you could end up getting from this. And it'll give you the one based on the tokens you collect. So for example, one of them requires you to pick 5 military. The other one you pick does not matter, it can be another military if you want, but you have to have 5 military choices. Another means you have to have 2 diplo and 2 military. The other 2 don't matter, but there's another one where it has 2 admin, 2 diplo, 2 military. So you actually have to know what you're aiming for, otherwise you might end up with a government reform you do not want. So what are these events that you're picking from? Well, these are them. These are all 6 events, and I have the black lines to break them up. But a good example of what this is. The first option is you have your ruler gain 1 admin skill. Just permanently every month you'll gain 1 extra admin mana. And for the rest of their life, you get minus 25% construction cost and plus 20% production efficiency, or You get a Diplo skill point with the ruler. Any excess over 6 is 100 points. And you get 2 Diplo reputation and 1 Diplo relation slot as long as they live. Or for the military, you get the military skill point or 100 mil power if it's over 6, and 10% morale of armies and 0.5 yearly army tradition. So you actually have to make a choice between other options there. Or the other one here, 25% reduced mercenary maintenance and increased mercenary manpower for the admin token, increased marine force limit and national sailors modifier for the Diplo token, or army tradition for the military one. So you actually have to make these choices with the knowledge that you're giving up potentially government reforms later on. So let's go ahead and cover what these government reforms are. And by simply understanding what they're called, you'll be able to tell in the game, because it'll tell you to get this one, you need to have 5 military tokens, or 2, 2, and 2. So once you know what they are going for, you can simply find it in the screen in the tooltip. So let's go ahead and bring that up. These are the 15 government reforms that you can get as Livonia. And while I have said before in other guides that there are tags that can do anything, you can play diplomatic or colonial or space marine if you want, and you're not giving up anything because you can play how you want to, nothing has ever been more true than with Livonia, because there are just so many options here for so many different play styles. Do you want to play tall? There's the Livonian States General, which works just like the Dutch Republic. Do you want to go colonial? They have the Livonian Thassalocracy with colonial range and settler chance. Do you want to have something just unique? You have the Livonian Absolute Monarchy. It gives you 30 maximum absolutism, 3 yearly absolutism, but you lose your absolutism when your ruler dies. So you have to build it back up over time. Though you could still have all the absolutism you could possibly want. Or you have things like the States Council, where you get more Diplo relation slots, and you get more vassal force limit contribution, but you're giving up your manpower, meaning you're more reliant on your vassals to actually fight, though if you're revoking the privilegia, that is super strong. Or you have the normal Space Marine route with the Militarist Monarchy, which is basically a slightly toned down version of the Prussian Monarchy. Or the Autocracy, which is just generally good for how most people play the game. Or you have the Imperial Reign with 15% core cost reduction, meaning if you stack that with certain monuments, you're basically able to core half of Europe for nothing. So there's a lot of different options in here that are just very, very potent, depending on how you choose to play the game. So look through here, because there's so many options that it's almost difficult to pick. But the good news is that this is not exactly an unreliable guide. While it is possible that things can go wrong, and I'll talk about the number one way it can in a second, it's going to generally work about 90% of the time. The one time it doesn't is actually when you're fighting the Teutonic Order. It's not trying to get into the HRE or anything else, it's specifically fighting the Teutons. What makes the Teutonic Order so frustrating here is their allies. You see, out of the 60 test runs that I had as the Livonian Order, about 10% of the time, the Teutonic Order did not just ally Denmark and a couple of small minors in the north like Mecklenburg, but instead they'd ally Denmark and somebody like Bohemia or Hungary, somebody that would make it so Poland is on an equal playing field in terms of numbers. The problem with that is whenever you're in a war where it would be roughly equal in strength, there is an increased likelihood that another AI is going to attack you, thinking that you're going to be particularly vulnerable because you're fighting your equals, and you are directly bordering Muscovy almost at the beginning of the game. Now usually, if you're not fighting somebody massive, they will focus on the Danes, who will take this land away from Novgorod pretty much every single time. The problem with that is that if you have to attack the Teutonic Order and Muscovy is not attacking the Danes for whatever reason, and it's an equal fight, they're likely to attack you. And there's not a whole lot you can do if they do. Because if you're fighting Denmark and the Teutonic Order and Hungary and now Muscovy as well, you're just going to be so much outnumbered. the likelihood of you even being able to survive without losing territory is pretty low. So unfortunately, this is not a completely no restart guide, but it is pretty reliable in the fact that most of the time the Teutonic Order is not going to ally multiple strong tags. Meaning that you'll be able to come in, take them out, grab Danzig, join the HRE, and come back later to finish the job, because you'll have other people, such as Austria, willing to come in and fight somebody such as Denmark or Hungary when they get in your way. With that being said, if you found this helpful, or if this is going to make it easier for you to play the Livonian Order, like and subscribe. I will be covering more nation guides in the future. If you want me to cover a specific country or a specific branching tree now, let me know in a comment below. I'd be more than happy to add new things to the list, because my list is getting incredibly short. But thank you all for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day.